I don't take chances when I'm hiking solo. I carry 2 knives. A GPS and a compass. I download offline maps, log coordinates, and most importantly, I mark my trail. Always have. Carve a shallow line into the bark of trees every 100 yards or so. Just enough to know I've been there. Enough to find my way back if something goes wrong. It saved me before. This time, it was just a 3-day solo loop through a less traveled section of forest east of Glacier. Late March. Still cold, but the snow was starting to thin, which makes for good tracking and low tourist traffic. Perfect. I parked off a service road, hit the trailhead by noon. Weather held, gray sky, stiff wind, nothing I hadn't handled. The first few hours were uneventful. A few animal tracks. Crow calls. That familiar, peaceful emptiness only real wilderness gives you. Around mile 3, I started carving. First tree, one clean slash on the north-facing side of a red pine. Deep enough to be visible, shallow enough not to damage the tree. Then another at the next turn. And another. Just like always. By late afternoon, I found a good flat spot near a rise overlooking the valley. Pitched the tent. Boiled coffee. Ate a protein bar. Nothing strange. But when I woke up the next morning, something felt off. It wasn't the cold. Or the quiet. It was the tree. About 10 feet from my tent. Same kind of pine I'd marked the day before. But it had 2 slashes. Identical width. Identical depth. My style. But I hadn't cut that one. Not there. Not that direction. I stood there for a while, knife still in my hand, looking at it. Maybe I'd marked it by accident, I thought. Maybe I looped the trail tighter than I realized. I pulled out my GPS, checked the track. No loop. No backtrack. I was further north than I'd ever marked before. I knelt to double-check the angle. The cut was clean. Fresh. No weathering. Made with the same kind of blade I carry. Still, I let it go. Told myself it was old. Maybe I'd passed a ranger mark. Or another hiker. Someone like me. But when I packed up and moved on, I kept finding them. Marks. On trees I hadn't touched. Every 100 yards. Perfectly spaced. Cut the way I cut. Leading deeper into the woods. By the second mile, I knew they weren't old. The slashes were too clean. Too fresh. Still sticky with sap in some places. I ran my fingers over one and felt the tacky resin cling to my glove. This wasn't a coincidence. It was mimicry. Whoever was out there, they weren't just leaving marks. They were using my pattern. My spacing. My angles. Same blade width, same depth. I checked. That wasn't normal. That wasn't something you stumble into. That was someone watching. I stood there in the cold, breathing slow, listening to a forest that had gone still. Even the birds had stopped. The kind of quiet where snowflakes seemed to land too loudly. I turned around and followed my trail back. I kept track of every mark I passed. I'd made a dozen by that point, one every 100 yards or so. At mark number 4, I stopped cold. There were 2 slashes now. I stared at it, my stomach tightening in slow waves. Yesterday, there was one. I remember. I always do one. Always. This mark, this tree, I had cut it myself. It was mine. Now it wasn't alone. I knelt beside it. Ran my glove over the second cut. Same knife style. Same height. But the angle was wrong. Just slightly. A little too neat. A little too perfect. Like someone was copying me. But didn't know what it meant. That's when the wind shifted. Brought a new scent with it. Faint, but wrong. Not rot. Not sulfur. Just, metallic. Like blood and battery acid. It prickled the back of my throat and made my teeth ache. I turned and looked back up the trail. And saw another slash. New. Still dripping. On a tree I hadn't passed yet. It was ahead of me. I hadn't walked that far. But the cut was there. And I swear, I could hear the sap dripping. Like something had just stepped away. I stopped carving after that. I don't know why. Not fear, exactly. More like, refusal. If someone wanted to play with my trail, they could have it. I wasn't going to give them more pieces to work with. But the marks didn't stop. They got bolder. By midday I found one that wasn't a slash. It was a circle. Same height as mine. Same blade depth. But perfectly curved. Deliberate. Not a ranger symbol. Not any survival sign I knew. Just a circle. Empty. Watching. 100 yards later, 2 circles. Side by side. And then I saw my initials. Etched deep into the bark of a cedar, carved with the same hand that had mirrored mine. JL. Same angle I always sign gear with. I stared at it, heartbeat rising. I hadn't signed that. I'd never marked my initials in the woods. Not once. Not even as a kid. And still, it was in my handwriting. I backed away from the tree. And noticed something worse. The mounds. At first I thought it was natural, just uneven terrain, snow drift, tree roots. But they were too regular. Rounded. 3 in a row, maybe 10 feet apart, about the size of sleeping bags. I stepped closer. No gear. No tarp. Just snow. I nudged one with my boot. It didn't give. Beneath the snow was packed dirt. Rounded and smooth. I cleared more. Found stone edging. They were graves. 3 of them. Fresh. No names. No crosses. Just new earth in a place no one should have been. And then. Another mark. Behind me. New. Still wet. A handprint. Palm pressed into bark. Too wide. Too long. And around the fingers, scratches. Like it had reached out. And pulled itself through. I tried to turn back. I picked a direction, any direction, and just moved. No more following trails. No more trusting carved trees. I'd make a new path. Cut straight west. Reach the river. Follow it to the road. But the forest had other plans. After an hour of bushwhacking, I came out into a clearing I'd already passed. I recognized it, the split-trunk pine, the blackened stump, the cluster of frozen moss. Same configuration. Same broken branches. Except. The marks were different. Now the pine had 3 slashes. One longer than the others. Like a tally mark. The stump. Carved. Deep. With a shape that made no sense. A spiral that coiled too tightly. Like it was trying to disappear into the wood. The moss was wrong too. It was wet. Even though the air was dry. I stared for a long time. Then I made a choice. I carved a symbol of my own. Something random. A broken arrow. Not my usual slash. Not my spacing. Not even my knife, I used the backup from my boot. Then I walked. Fast. 10 minutes. No turns. Just dead straight. I should have hit the ridge by then. But instead, I found my mark. The one I just made. Same angle. Same depth. Same location. I touched it. Still warm from the blade. I wasn't walking in circles. The forest was folding. The next few hours are a blur. My memory gets foggy. I remember a slope that didn't go down but still made my legs burn. A bird that called my name, not a mimic. Not a trick. My name. Whispered in the same cadence I use when I talk to myself. By sunset, I'd stopped pretending I was hiking. I was trapped. Not by cliffs or snow or nightfall. By something that knew how I moved. And that's when I saw it. At the base of a cedar. My backpack. Half covered in frost. I hadn't dropped it. Mine was still on my shoulders. This one was older. Worn. But it was mine. The same patch. Same initials. And inside. A knife. Just like mine. Still wet with sap. I woke up on cold ground. No tent. No fire. No memory of laying down. Just pine needles in my mouth and a soft ache in my left side. The sky was gray. The kind of gray that doesn't tell you the time, just that the sun exists somewhere else. I stood slowly. My pack was gone. My boots were on. But unlaced. My knife was in my hand. And there was blood on the hilt. I checked myself, no cuts. No pain, apart from the ache near my ribs. I lifted my shirt. And froze. There was a mark. Carved just above my hip. Shallow. Clean. Vertical. Not deep enough to bleed much. But precise. Like I'd been notched. Branded. I stumbled back. Almost fell. The trees spun for a moment. I shouted. Hey! The woods didn't answer. No echo. No wind. No birds. Just a sharp stillness, like the forest was holding its breath. I started walking. Again. I don't know how long. Hours. Days. The snow never deepened. The light never changed. It was like I was inside a looped photograph. Then I saw another slash. On a tree I hadn't touched. But it looked aged. Weathered. Faded. I stepped closer. It wasn't just faded. It was scarred over. Old. Years old. And below it, carved deep in rotting bark. Still here. My knees nearly buckled. That wasn't a warning. That was a status. I reached for my phone out of instinct. Still dead. But something buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Not the phone. A photo. Faded. Dirty. Folded into fourths. Me. Standing in front of a tree. Holding a knife. Smiling. And behind me. A shape. Tall. Wide. Blurred. Watching. I kept moving. I had to. Every time I stopped, the quiet got thicker. Heavier. Like it was waiting for me to give up. Like stillness was a kind of agreement. I started noticing something else. Recognition. I'd pass a stand of birch trees and feel a jolt in my gut. That rock, the one cracked down the middle like a busted molar, I'd seen that before. In a photo. Not one I took. A black and white picture, posted once in a forest ranger blog. The article was about unmapped terrain where compasses failed and surveyors gave up. I remember that rock. But this time, I walked past it. In real life. That's when I knew, this wasn't my first time here. It couldn't be. The trail wasn't unfamiliar, it was forgotten. And then I found the notebook. Wrapped in a torn thermal sleeve, wedged under a flat stone, dry as if it had never seen snow. Inside, my handwriting. Pages and pages. Dates scratched out. No years. Just numbers. Each entry began with the same line. Still here. And each one had drawings. Not of trails. Not of campsites. But of trees. Very specific trees. Tilted just so. Scarred in particular ways. Some had marks like mine. Some had faces in the bark. I flipped faster. Dozens of entries. One showed a map, a crude sketch with loops and arrows and a spiral in the center. Under it, "Stop walking forward." I dropped the book. Looked up. There, 10 feet ahead. That same spiral tree. The one from the sketch. Its bark curled back, blackened at the edges. And carved into its trunk, over old faded lines. "Welcome back." I followed the map from the notebook. Didn't think. Didn't question. Just moved. Every part of me screamed that it was a trap, but I followed anyway, because doing anything else felt worse. Like standing still would let the forest finally close its fist. The map led me downhill, past a line of splintered trees, each one marked with 4 slashes, wide, crude, violent. Not like mine. These weren't for tracking. They were warnings. Or maybe barriers. Just past the last one, I found it. A road. Gravel. Rutted. Real. I stepped onto it like a man crawling out of a grave. Cried. Not loud, but sharp and stupid. Like pressure bleeding out. There were no signs. No vehicles. But it was real. It wasn't folding. The trees didn't lean in here. The air felt lighter. I walked. Kept walking. 4 hours. And then I saw my truck. Right where I left it. Dusty. Parked under that leaning pine just past the gate. I didn't run. I didn't shout. I just stood there, staring. Because someone had left something on the hood. My knife. The one I'd been carrying the whole trip. The one still clipped to my belt. I reached out, touched it. Cold. Real. Still damp with sap. I looked back toward the trail. Nothing moved. I got in the truck, turned the key. The engine fired. Radio crackled on. White noise. Then. A whisper. Just one. From the static. Still here. I punched the knob, shut it off. Pulled out. Drove. Didn't stop until I saw signs. Gas stations. Cell signal. But that night, after I got home, I found pine needles on the floor of my apartment. On the inside of the door. I live on the 3rd floor. No trees for 50 yards. And the next morning, there was a mark on my kitchen table. Not scratched. Carved. One clean slash. My angle. My depth. It's been 3 weeks. I don't hike anymore. Don't drive anywhere alone. I don't even walk into rooms with the lights off. But I still find them. The marks. On furniture. On the inside of my closet door. On the spine of a book I haven't touched in years. Always the same, clean, deliberate, familiar. Mine. But I don't remember carving them. And sometimes, I wake up holding the knife. Not the one I brought into the woods. The other one. The one I found in that old pack. The one that had already been there. I don't remember bringing it home. But I keep it in the freezer now. Wrapped in foil. Buried behind everything. Like that might keep it asleep. It doesn't. Every couple nights, I hear something moving. Not in the hallway. Not on the roof. Inside. Like footsteps behind the walls. Like breathing beneath the floor. And in the morning, I always find something new. Another line. Another tree drawn in pencil on the wall. Another folded paper map slipped under my front door. Each one with a different route. Each one ending in the same place. A spiral. In the center. Sometimes I feel like I never left the forest. Like I'm still out there. Still walking. Still looking for the way back. But the more I try to trace the path, the more I realize. There isn't one. Because the marks don't lead anywhere anymore. They're not showing me the way out. They're reminding me I never left.